Welcome to our webinar, Modern ERP in the Food and Beverage Industry. I'm Ruthie Sloan. I'll be your host for today. And I'm just going to introduce our guest speakers and tell you a little bit about Revolution Group. If you don't know Revolution Group, we're an IT technology consulting firm in Westerville, Ohio. We have 3 divisions. We have a technology services division that does IT outsourcing, a Salesforce CRM division that does implementations and projects on the Salesforce platform. And we also have a manufacturing ERP services division, which is the division you'll hear about today. And they do consultation, deployment, optimization, and all things in the manufacturing ERP services realm. Our presenters today are Alex Wilson. She's the HR manager and Flex champion at Dominion Liquid Technologies, and Ken Keller, who is one of our senior ERP consultants here at Revolution Group. He's been with us for several years and has a vast experience in manufacturing as well as ERP implementation. And with that, I'm going to hand the controls over to Ken Keller.
All right, thanks, Ruthie. So today we're going to talk about modern ERP in the food and beverage industry, and we're going to talk about an example that took place with Dominion Liquid, who we'll talk about in a moment, and Alex will tell you all about that company and the needs that they had for an ERP and how we went about supporting their needs through Plex as their ERP solution. The benefits of modern ERP in food and beverage industry especially are the need for the true traceability, better inventory management. What do we have on the floor? What do we need to order? What do we need to ship? Are things soon to expire? Streamlined use of resources. So are we purchasing just in time so that things don't expire before we get a chance to use them? Production efficiencies, understanding where our bottlenecks are in the process, productivity gains, and improved compliance. And for the purpose of this presentation, to keep it a little shorter, we're really going to focus on improved compliance, in this example, compliance to the SQF regulation. Alex?
So a little bit about DLT, because DLT doesn't really tell you much about us. We're a food and beverage manufacturer. We make a wide variety of products from pancake syrups to barbecue sauces and teriyaki sauce, all the way down to energy shots. We provide new product development to full-scale production, and full-scale production here kind of means blending the product and then putting that product into a bottle and labeling it so that it's ready for the shelf in your grocery store. And then, we grew really quickly, and we knew that we needed an ERP system. It became very evident. There was tons of paper flying around. We have to track lot codes and make sure that we're compliant with SQF. So with that rapid growth, it became very apparent that we had to have an ERP system, and we wanted that ERP system to be able to support SQF compliance, and we needed better and easier traceability, more so than better, but easier traceability of lot codes, and we also wanted increased inventory management, streamlined use of resources, and productivity gains.
So in most manufacturing, there are some standards and requirements that companies like DLT adhere to or try to adhere to ensure that they met those bullet points that we talked about earlier, the traceability, the productivity, and in this case, safe quality food. And as manufacturing has increased globally over the last few years, as we're coming out of a global recession, really, to compete, you must have a quality plan which assures the achievement of those basic requirements for industry regulatory standards, meeting those customer expectations because of the greater competition. But more so than just having a plan, it's even more important that you actually follow through on that plan. Henry Ford said that quality is doing the right thing when no one is looking. And when it comes to compliance, that's the key. There are the needs for audits, and the audits are the confirmation that things are happening, but the audits don't actually make those things happen. So when it comes to ERPs and compliance to many of these industry standards, it's real important that we have a plan, we follow through on that plan, and we prove that we follow through. So this little diagram here actually comes directly from the SQF manual, and it is the mantra of most industry quality standards, which is say what you do and do what you say. To achieve the SQF certification, a company must document and implement the modules of the standard at a certain level that's required, and then provide, evidence in the form of documents and historical records, or in other words, prove what we're doing. So to document the SQF system, DLT and others like DLT need to prepare policies and procedures and work instructions, all the different specifications of the relevant modules or requirements of the SQF code. In other words, they need to say what they do. To do what they say, they need to implement that, to put into place those policies and procedures, again, with work instructions and specifications. And then finally, which is sometimes the most difficult and ardent task, is to provide records that you actually did these things, to keep records and demonstrate compliance to those requirements, and in other words, prove that you did these things.
So it kind of came down to, these are the standards that SQF says we need to do, and we need to document it, implement it, and be able to provide the records. And that was our driving force in trying to choose our ERP system. Revolution Group came in, and we went through a pretty extensive process where we looked at multiple ERP systems, and then we narrowed it down to a few, and then outside of those few, we then narrowed it down to Plex. The biggest factors that we were looking for were quality planning, being able to have compliance with SQF, and then also what the overall system would look like and how our employees would be able to use it out on the floor.
All right, so DLT, as Alex said, DLT chose Revolution Group to support them with the implementation of their selected ERP through that ERP selection process in Plex. DLT already had an established documented quality management plan, which made it a little easier for us to then take that documented quality management plan and incorporate it with Plex. We use functionality within the Plex document control system, which is compliant in itself. This greatly reduced the amount of document migration during the implementation project, because we could actually use documents that were on DLT's local network. And so Plex would just point to those documents that resided on already on DLT's network rather than uploading directly into Plex. This allowed them to link all of their existing work instructions, policies, and procedures that didn't really need to change as we implemented the new ERP. The quality plan itself consists of item specifications, control plans, process flow charts, critical control points, the HACCP documents, and documentation. And Plex does have a core document authoring menu, which is where we can build these item specs, attach them to control plans, which actually can become check sheets, and therefore we can manage our critical control points through the HACCP. So what you're looking at on this screen is actually an example of a control plan, specification showing up as the characteristics at different operation levels for the manufacturer of DLT's product. This allowed DLT to create quality control plans for all of their products, not just those that they manufacture, but also those that they purchase. The control plan allows us to determine when this confirmation or check is to take place, when to confirm these critical control points' health, what is the frequency, who's to do it, when are they required to do it, and how do they receive notification that it's time to do these things. So this is an example of a resultant check sheet that allowed for real-time verification of adherence to standards. This also allowed us to pull in some of the general practices of the food and beverage industry, like good manufacturing practices, confirming that we're meeting all GMPs within the process. So this is just an example of that check sheet. It is an electronic check sheet. Should say at this point that DLT was already doing these things, but it wasn't very efficient. It was very paper-driven, lots of paper that needed to be stored in boxes and that sort of thing. And obviously, with a blank sheet of paper, it really doesn't drive the need for the check to be filled out, or we really can't set frequencies. So having this system allowed us to build check sheets that have I guess intelligence, allowed us to create situational, what I'll call what-if checks. So for example, using the Plex control panel, if the status of the machine or the work center that is bottling, in this case, a product, if that status of the machine goes into a maintenance status, we're doing some type of maintenance on the system, Plex was intelligent enough to say, okay, we need to stop what we're doing and we need to require a post-maintenance check sheet that is filled out before we can turn the machine back on and begin bottling. We need to make sure that our tools are removed, that everything's working properly, we don't have any leaks and things like that. This, without the check sheet being completed, we have the ability to stop production, to actually prevent production recording and receipt of container labels until the check is complete. It's a very visual system, so the operator can also see, hey, these that are in green, it tells them when the last check was completed, when it's going to be needed again. Here's an example of a time check sheet. It says that we have 13 minutes before our next check sheet is due, and then we went into a maintenance status, so the check sheet becomes yellow. It tells the operator, hey, we've stopped, we need to go. Should mention that DLT is not using PLC integration, so it doesn't physically shut down the machine, but it does prevent production recording in the ERP. We also use standard Plex functionality that allows for notifications, email notifications that can be sent to whoever we choose, someone with an email address, when the machine has a certain status. So for example, when it's time to verify a batch in their food and beverage process, when the work center status or machine status goes into a QA approval needed status. So this is a call from the cook or the operator. Changing the work center status to QA approval can send a notification to the quality technicians, giving them a formatted email that tells them exactly where they need to go and what they need to do. So in this case, it's a batch approval process. This reduced quite a bit of downtime at DLT's facility and time waiting on batch approvals.
Yeah, and kind of what Ken just said, I think it's important to start with how we functioned prior to Plex so you can fully understand how much the quality function changed once we started using iPads out on the floor. But before we implemented Plex, the blender would finish a batch, and then they'd have to walk into the QA lab, tell the tech to come out onto the floor. The tech would get the sample, take it back into the lab, check the batch, go back onto the floor, find the blender, and say, hey, you're good to go. Now QA receives email notifications on handheld devices telling them the batch is ready to be checked. And the blenders are able to start cleaning up their area. They're not taking the additional time looking for a tech to come check batches. So they're able to get started on the next batch at the same time. Also, the checks were on paper before. There wasn't a notification telling the tech that the hourly checks must be completed, which is where Ken showed you the different timestamps that were on the checks. And this led to a lot of downtime, like Ken said. Now, the QA techs see a counter in the Work Center screen. They know how long they have until the next check must be performed. Additionally, the line checks and batch records are all housed in Plex, and there's not that need for time to be taken out of their day where they're going back into the filing room and having to file all of the checks, because it's all paperless. Also, like I said, we're using iPads, and it's now a huge part of our process. Our QA techs in production use them every day. Prior to Plex, QA techs would have to go out onto the floor, grab a bottle from the line in a box, bring those both back into the lab, and look up the product specifications from a computer. Now they're able to pull the specs up on their iPads while they're standing on the line. The job of the QA tech has had a huge increase in efficiencies, and checks are taking way less time. There's also less mistakes made, too, because of that. And since the techs are able to pull all the specs up while they're on the floor, we've seen, like I said, a decrease in errors from the quality standpoint, which has led to less rework for coding and different things. There's also an increased accuracy when the checks are being done from the line versus having to take down information in one location and then enter that information in another location. There's not that lost time between the two different places of where you're physically seeing something and then having to go remember that information, retain it, and then enter it into a computer somewhere else. They're seeing and recording immediately, or seeing and checking a spec at the same time. So if there are any questions, if they're questioning something, they can easily click right our touch screen on their iPad and then see or double check what they might be questioning. It's all there at literally at their fingertips. And then, iPads aren't just being used for check sheets and quality checks. They're also used by production leads. We are not able, prior to Plex, we were not able to track downtime accurately because we were using handwritten logs that the line leads had filled in at the end of their shift. They're now able to enter all downtime as it happens by using the control panel, and we found issues in our processes because of this, and we've seen a reduction in downtime by 10% since the previous year by making necessary changes that we found through this live time tracking. Also, because of being paperless, our SQF audits have vastly changed. Prior to Plex, there was an auditor sifting through tons and tons of paperwork and just a room full of binders, and now the auditor and the practitioner are just using a laptop. Information's at the practitioner's fingertips. They're able to produce documentation immediately. And it's also really, all of our auditors that come in, they're really impressed by how quickly we can produce documentation for them. We can answer any question they need almost immediately.
Excellent. I think we should end there. Thanks, Alex. So next is providing records of the SQF system, proving that you're doing these things. So we talked about, how we're documenting the quality plan. Alex walked you through exactly how they're performing the functions of that plan, and next we need to provide records of those. So before Plex and before using the ERP, as Alex said, all of the checks, all of the documentation was on paper, and so in order to prove that these things were being done, someone needed to pull out those binders or boxes that held all those historical records. Now being in the system, in the ERP system, they can be called up either by date or by product or by process or by check itself, or by work center or even by operator, by lot number. So the traceability is across the board in this case. And DLT has eliminated all paper copies of these records and can now provide historical proof of adherence with just the single click of a button. And Alex said it perfectly, how efficient that has become for them when it comes to proving the compliance in the forms of an audit. Plex and the ERP does allow also for a compliance system module. The compliance module allows you to schedule those internal reviews to make sure ahead of the recertification or just standard external audit to make sure that we're still adhering to our practices and policies. Allows us to schedule those internal reviews, manage the internal and external audits, and assign resultant actions. And this is the system that Alex was mentioning that allows the external auditor to just kind of come in and review and say, okay, I see that you are reviewing, you have the historical record right here in your internal audit, and it actually links to the thing that we're checking. So I've heard rumors, I haven't actually noticed this for myself or experienced this for myself, but there are Plex customers that have mentioned that they have had external audits without leaving a conference room because all of the historical records were right there. So there was a simple plant tour with the external auditor, but then the proof, the providing of historical records that says we're adhering to the standards was all done in a conference room at a laptop, as she said. It's very important to note that this is all real-time evidence as well. So not only are you looking at historical records that says, oh, we did this last month, you can see all of those records that as they're occurring. The immediate results were elimination of paper copy storage, as we said. The data required for root cause investigation was also there and is recorded at multiple locations. So if there is an issue, we know the who, what, where, when, why. So these checks are tied not just, as we said, not just to the product. They're tied to the work center where the product was made, the operator or cook who made this product, all of the ingredients that went into the product. It is all tied back to a check sheet, and we have full lot traceability there. We have real-time notifications of failed checks, and so I think Alex said this as well. So as they're using those iPads and they're out on the shop floor and they're checking, if they do find something that is out of compliance or out of standard, real-time notifications can go to a team of people that need to react to that. So that allows our QA technicians to simply record what they need to record, and then if others need to take action, they're immediately notified in real time. With all of this data now into the system, it allowed DLT two things. One, it allowed them to free up time from folks that were migrating data from a paper copy to an electronic spreadsheet that would support them in doing some statistical process control. Now that FPC is built directly into the ERP, so all we have to do is fill out the check sheet and allow the system, allow Plex to gather that data and give us the statistical process control that we need in the form of charts and the rest. And as Alex mentioned, not only has the SQF process been streamlined, but recertification audit showed increased scores. And that is it. Alex, did you have anything else that you wanted to add?
No, I feel like we covered it.
Okay, all right.
We are happy to take questions, so if you're on the line and you have a question, just feel free to type that and submit it into your control panel there. There's a tab for questions. While we're waiting just a few minutes to see if there are any questions, Ken and Alex, if you could talk about, I know when you did this presentation at PowerPlex, there were a lot of questions about audits and different various agencies coming in and whether they required paperwork or not paperwork. So could you speak a little bit about that and how you were able to truly go paperless?
Sure. So paperless is a term that gets thrown around quite a bit. Most people think they want to go paperless. It sounds sexy. But most people think that it's not achievable. Especially in food and beverage. So the questions that came about were, hey, we believe that the FDA or someone requires a paper copy with an actual signature. on the paper copy, verifying that this person actually did this thing. I referenced a presentation that was also at this PowerPlex 2016 presentation given by Bill Bramer. He's a consultant at Kestrel Management, who is a consulting firm that deals mainly in food safety, and he was talking about the Food Safety Modernization Act. And in his discussions with the FDA and others, they are actually moving away from that that desire to have these signatures on paper copies sticking in boxes somewhere, because these systems, these modern ERP systems, can enforce. So anybody can sign can put a signature on a piece of paper. I can create a piece of paper that says I did a check 2 years ago and sign my name to it. When it comes to this modern ERP system in Plex, the check is real time. I can't do a check for something that I did 2 years ago. I had to have done that check at that time. It's time stamped. The operator who actually filled out that sheet has to be logged into Plex. They have to have met certain requirements. There are ways that we can prove that they are approved to run the machine, that they've received the proper training and all the rest. So actually, what Bill was mentioning was the governmental agencies, the regulatory folks are moving more and more. They're actually promoting the modern ERP systems, the electronic systems, the paperless systems, because of the ability to enforce. So yeah, you're right, Ruthie. It was a great discussion, and there were some that didn't believe paperless truly was possible, but I think Alex can attest that it's truly a paperless system. It's a quality system at DLT today.
We do have a couple questions. We are a new IQF facility, SQF level 2, and he would like to know, can you integrate with other ERP systems such as SAP? I need to have real-time inventory numbers available to my customers and partners.
Depends on the interpretation of integration. What you mean by integration? Absolutely, we can integrate. We can also use download and export functions. So I do have a food and beverage customer that has they're a bottler of water and of flavored energy drinks, and they have a customer who requires that they feed their system, the customer system, with data. The answer to the question is there is some integration. It's not pre-built into the system, but developers can do such a thing. But a very simple solution was a download of data into an uploadable export, format like Excel that can be sent to the customer in an Excel format and then just simply upload it into their system. So we've seen a couple different ways to utilize it. In the case of this specific question with SAP, I would probably have to have a little more information to know exactly what could be done. But there are examples and integrations.
Okay, we have another question. What are some differences in ERP systems designed for a build to inventory versus build to order facility?
Differences when it comes to just the difference between the ERP, or just the difference between the kind of the quality compliance. Let me think about that for a moment. Really, when it comes to the use of this ERP tool in Plex, there are really no differences in the setup or how we deal with a build to order versus build to stock system. The setup for the food safety portion of this is all based upon product the ingredients, the machines at which they're made, and the processes and the rest. Really, the thing that drives the production is separate from that. I guess it could have an impact on the frequencies of the check, but of course that is something that we can manage as well. It is completely customizable. So I don't know if that answered the question, but really I don't see a big difference. Of course, there's going to be difference in configuration of the system that moves product or demands that product be made. But when it comes to food safety, there's really not going to be any difference that I can see. Alex, can you think of anything?
No.
And actually, in your facility, Alex, you're doing both. There are some of your own product that you build to stock, and there are others that you bottle for customers, correct?
Yes.
Based on customer orders. So yeah, you're doing both of those.
Yeah, we do both.
You're doing both?
Yeah, we definitely do both.
Yeah, in the same ERP.
We do that by using the inventory controls.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you both. I don't see any more questions, so we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Thank you both for presenting. Again, it was a great presentation. I've heard it about 3 times now, and I always learn something new. This is really a great story, I think, of being able to embrace, like you said, truly paperless and move to cloud-based ERP, even when you have some pretty strict regulations and guidelines you have to adhere to. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And if you have any further questions, just please feel free to contact us here at Revolution Group. We would love to talk to you about ERP and answer any additional questions you have. Thank you, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.